The alien auction house was alive with noise, filled with glowing lights and strange smells. Creatures from many worlds gathered in a vast hall made of dark metal and sharp edges. Their voices rose like a storm, deep growls, high screeches, and cruel laughter. At the center of this chaos stood a human girl. Her wrists were bound by iron cuffs, a chain pulling her forward like she was an animal on display. She looked small compared to the towering shapes around her, yet her eyes burned with a light that no chain could kill. The auctioneer, a tall alien with skin like cracked stone and eyes glowing red, raised his long arm high. His voice echoed through the hall, loud and mocking. "Behold a rare prize, one of the fragile humans, a creature from the death world they call Earth." The crowd erupted in laughter. Some hissed, some shouted insults. They called her weak, soft, useless. They mocked her trembling knees, her thin frame, and her silence. The girl stood tall, though her body shook. She had been taken far from her world, stolen by those who thought humans were easy prey. Her clothes were torn, her hair messy, her face pale with fear. But her spirit refused to break. She looked straight ahead, never lowering her eyes. This was her only defiance left. The aliens laughed louder. "Look at her," one shouted, his voice like broken glass. "She cannot even speak," another sneered. "A human? Not worth the price of a meal." The hall shook with their cruelty. To them, she was nothing more than a toy to be bought and sold. The auctioneer began the bidding. Who will offer for this human? Who dares to own such a fragile thing? He grinned with sharp teeth, expecting only mockery. Hands and claws rose, offering low numbers. The crowd roared with jokes, each bid made to humiliate her more. She clenched her fists behind the chains, her nails cutting into her skin, but she did not cry. Not a single tear. Then, for a moment, the noise slowed. The girl felt it. A shadow moved at the back of the hall. Among the towering creatures, a figure stood silent. He was not large, not covered in armor, not glowing with power like the others. He was human, just like her. Her heart skipped. Could it be another of her kind? The man stepped forward slowly, his boots echoing against the floor. The crowd turned, and when they saw him, they laughed harder. "Another human, even weaker," one shouted. "Perhaps they come in pairs, one to be sold, one to beg." The laughter grew cruel again, but the man did not flinch. His face was calm, his eyes sharp, his walk steady. He moved like a soldier who had walked through fire before. He stopped near the auction block where the girl stood chained. His eyes met hers for a brief moment. She saw no fear there, no weakness, only strength hidden beneath silence. The auctioneer sneered. "And what is this? Another human dares to step into my hall? Speak, little creature. Do you come to beg for her freedom?" The man's voice cut through the noise, calm, steady, cold. "No, I come to claim her." The hall froze for a heartbeat, then exploded with laughter again. The aliens bent over, clutching their sides, roaring at the joke. "Claim her? A human? You cannot even afford a seat at this table?" The mockery shook the walls, but the man did not smile. He raised a small device from his belt, glowing with credits beyond what most aliens had seen. The numbers flashed high, too high. The laughter stumbled, then stopped. Eyes widened. The auctioneer blinked, unsure. The man repeated, louder now, his voice like thunder in the silence. "I place my bid. I will take her." The hall grew still. The girl's breath caught in her throat. The chains felt lighter, though they had not moved. For the first time since her capture, hope stirred inside her chest. But the aliens were not ready to let their game end. One of them, a massive beast with tusks curling from his mouth, stood and snarled. "No human buys from us. If you want her, you prove yourself, you fight, you bleed." The crowd cheered, hungry for violence. The auctioneer grinned, his red eyes glowing brighter. "Yes, let the human prove his worth. No credits will save him. Only strength." The girl's heart pounded. She looked at the man. He did not move, did not blink, did not fear. Slowly, he turned his head toward the tusked beast. His reply was simple, sharp, and chilling. "Then bring your champion." The hall shook with cheers. Aliens stomped, clapped, and howled for blood. The girl trembled, not from fear, but from something new, something rising inside her chest like fire. For the first time, she was not alone. A human stood beside her. And in his eyes, she saw a promise that everything was about to change. The crowd's roar grew louder, feeding on the promise of violence. Every alien in the hall leaned forward, eyes glowing, teeth flashing, claws scratching against the metal rails. The air felt thick, charged with cruel excitement. They had come for an auction, but now they would witness a fight, a human daring to stand against a champion of the stars. The girl's chain rattled as she was pulled aside, forced to kneel near the stage. The auctioneer grinned, showing his ibao, jagged teeth. His booming voice filled the hall. "A human dares to bid with us, a human dares to challenge us. Let the galaxy watch as weakness is broken under strength." The aliens cheered in approval, mocking laughter echoing through the chamber. Some shouted for blood. Others threw scraps of food at the chained girl, as if to remind her what they thought of her kind. She did not flinch. She sat still, her heart pounding as her eyes followed the man who stood calmly at the center. He did not answer their jeers. He did not shout back. His silence was heavier than their noise, and it unsettled them more than any insult could. One alien, a scaled beast with long sharp arms, leaned forward and hissed, "Humans are cattle. They break when whipped. They scream when burned. What do you think you are, little man? What makes you believe you are different?" The man's eyes flicked toward the creature. Cold, steady, silent. He did not give them the satisfaction of anger. The auctioneer raised his hand, silencing the crowd. His voice cut through like thunder. "Bring forth the champion!" The far doors opened with a hiss of steam. From the shadows stepped a monstrous figure, the champion. His body was thick with muscle, his skin covered in plates like natural armor. 2 horns curved from his skull, and his claws were as long as blades. His eyes glowed yellow, fixed on the human with pure hunger. The crowd went wild, screaming, stomping, chanting the champion's name. They beat the rails with fists and claws until the metal shook. The sound was deafening. The girl's breath caught. She had seen the champion fight before, when other prisoners had been tested. No one survived. Not one. The ground still carried the stains of those who had been torn apart. Her eyes darted back to the man, still calm, still steady. He did not shift his weight, did not raise his fists, did not even blink as the monster approached. The champion roared, shaking the walls. He struck his chest with a booming thud, then raised both claws high. The aliens howled, ready for blood. The auctioneer grinned wide. "This is the end of your foolishness, human. This is the price of your pride." The girl felt despair crawl through her chest. Could one man stand against such a beast? Could humanity truly survive this? The chain bit into her wrists as she gripped it tighter, whispering under her breath words he could not hear. "Please, please don't fall." The champion lunged, his claws slashing forward like lightning. The crowd gasped, then laughed, certain it would end in seconds. But the man moved. Not fast, not frantic. Smooth, precise. He stepped aside just enough that the claws missed him by inches. The beast snarled, slashing again, faster, harder, claws sparking against the floor as they struck. Again the man slipped away, his calm eyes never leaving his enemy. The laughter wavered. It was not supposed to be like this. Humans were supposed to scream, to panic, to bleed quickly. But this one, he moved with a warrior's grace. The champion roared again, louder, angrier. He attacked with both arms, a storm of claws. The human ducked, stepped, twisted. Each motion was sharp, controlled, and with every miss, the alien's fury grew. The crowd shouted, but their tone had changed. The laughter was thinner now, more uncertain. Some leaned forward, eyes wide. no longer mocking but watching. The girl's heart pounded harder. Her lips parted in shock. She had never seen anything like this. For the first time, she felt hope spread like fire inside her chest. The auctioneer's smile faltered. His eyes narrowed. Impossible, he muttered. The champion, enraged, slammed his massive fist down toward the human. The floor cracked. Dust rose, but the man was no longer there. He moved to the side, his boot striking the ground firmly, and then, for the first time, he struck back. One punch, simple, clean, straight to the champion's side. The sound was sharp, like stone cracking under pressure. The champion staggered, his armor-like skin dented. The crowd fell silent for a second. Then the hall erupted, not with laughter, but with shock. Shouts, gasps, denial. The champion roared in rage, but the human stood unmoved, his fist still, clenched, his eyes cold. The girl's chains rattled as she pulled against them, her breath shaking. She could not believe what she saw. He was not just surviving, he was fighting. The auctioneer slammed his staff against the ground, his voice desperate to control the chaos. It is only the beginning. The human will fall. He must fall. But in his red eyes, there was fear. And, in the crowd for the first time, there was silence. The girl lifted her head, her voice whispering through trembling lips, though no one heard her. He's not just a man. He's something more. The silence after the human strike was heavier than the noise that came before it. The champion's roar still echoed across the walls, but the crowd no longer laughed. Their eyes were wide, their claws frozen mid-air, their voices caught, in their throats. They had expected screams, broken bones, and blood. Instead, they saw a man who stood tall, calm and unshaken after wounding their greatest beast. The girl stared, her chest rising fast, her hands gripping the chains until her knuckles turned white. She had seen despair for so long that she almost forgot what strength looked like. And now in front of her, a stranger showed her something more terrifying than the alien's cruelty. He showed her defiance. The champion snarled, his yellow eyes burning hotter, his chest heaving. He slammed his claws into the floor, leaving cracks in the steel. The sound thundered like a war drum. Human, he growled, his voice deep like a quake. You dare touch me? You dare insult me before my crowd? The man did not answer. His silence was louder than any threat. The crowd tried to recover, their voices rising again in anger, calling the human arrogant, foolish, cursed. But the words sounded weak now, uncertain, like the edge of fear had slipped into their throats. The auctioneer, sensing his control slipping, raised his staff high. His voice shook as he shouted, "This means nothing. The human has no chance. The champion will crush him." The beast roared and lunged again, his massive arms swinging like blades of iron. Each strike cracked the floor, bent the rails, sent sparks across the room. But the human moved with uncanny precision, every step placed with purpose, every motion as if he had danced this battle 1,000 times before. He was not stronger than the champion, but he was smarter, faster, sharper. And then it happened. The human struck again. A sharp kick against the beast's leg, a blow to the ribs, a twist that forced the monster back. The champion staggered, his roar breaking into a grunt of pain. The crowd gasped as one. The girl's lips parted in awe. She had thought he might die quickly, but now she began to see the truth. He was not here to beg. He was not here to waste his life. He was here with a purpose. The champion fell back, his breathing heavy now, his armored skin cracked in places. He glared at the human, hatred glowing in his eyes. "You are no slave," he growled. "What are you?" Finally, the man spoke, his voice low and steady, carrying through the hall. "I am human." The words were simple, yet they struck the crowd like a weapon. Murmurs spread quickly, hisses and whispers moving from one alien to another. To them, humans were fragile prey. To them, humans were weak tools. But this one fought like a predator. The girl felt fire in her chest. Those 3 words carried more weight than all the chains around her. I am human. She repeated them in her mind, and for the first time since her capture, she felt proud again. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed. He saw the danger in that pride. He slammed his staff again, desperate to control the hall. This is no miracle. This is no victory. The human cheats or tricks. He cannot win by strength. Bring more witnesses. Bring more tests. But the man's gaze never left the champion. He did not bow. He did not break. His silence told the aliens everything they feared. The champion growled again, raising both claws. His body shook with rage. I will tear you apart, he spat. And when I do, your bones will feed my hounds. He lunged with ferocity greater than before, his claws flashing, his body a storm of fury. The human moved once more, smooth, sharp, controlled. He caught the beast's arm as it slashed down, twisted, and with one motion he threw the champion to the ground. The hall shook with the impact. Dust rose. The beast lay stunned, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with disbelief. The crowd fell into silence again. The girl gasped, her heart leaping in her chest. The chains cut deeper into her skin as she leaned forward, whispering through trembling lips. He can win. The auctioneer's face twisted in anger and fear. This was not supposed to happen. This was supposed to be entertainment, a humiliation for the humans. Instead, the galaxy's predators now saw a truth they had never wanted to face, that humans were not weak, that humans could fight. The man stepped back, his eyes sweeping the hall. He spoke again, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut through the silence. You laugh at us, you chain us, you sell us, but you forget what we are. The crowd did not move, no one dared breathe. The girl's chest tightened, her pulse racing. His words sank deep into her, echoing against her soul. The man's gaze turned back to the champion, who was slowly rising, trembling with rage. You will remember, he said, his voice cold as iron. The champion roared again, louder, angrier, charging with everything he had left. The ground cracked under his weight, his claws aimed for the kill. The crowd leaned forward, desperate for the end, but the girl's eyes widened as she saw the human's stance change. No longer defensive, no longer waiting. For the first time, he prepared to end it. And in that moment, before the strike fell, the girl understood. This was no ordinary man. This was no desperate fool. This was a human who had come to change everything. The ground trembled as the champion charged, his claws flashing like blades in the light. Every step cracked the metal floor, sending vibrations through the auction hall. The crowd roared, their hunger for blood returning, their voices rising like a storm. This was their moment. Human flesh was about to be torn apart. But the man did not move until the last possible instant. His body was still, his eyes sharp, his breathing calm, as if he had measured every heartbeat of the beast rushing toward him. Then, with one step, one twist, he slipped aside. The champion's claws struck the air, tearing nothing but shadows. The human's fist landed once more, clean, precise, against the creature's jaw. The sound cracked like thunder. The champion staggered, stumbling into the auctioneer's platform, splintering its edge. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Even the jeers died, replaced by gasps. The girl's heart pounded so loud she could hear nothing else. Her lips parted in awe, her breath sharp in her throat. He's not just surviving. He's controlling the fight. The auctioneer's red eyes burned with fury. He slammed his staff down, shouting above the whispers. Do not be fooled. The beast is not yet finished. Tear him apart, champion. Crush him. The champion roared, spittle flying, rage consuming him. His horns glowed faintly, with the heat of his fury, his claws sparking as they scraped the floor. He moved faster now, striking with wild power. Each blow meant to shatter bones, to end the fight with one brutal strike. The human dodged again, but not with ease this time. The beast's speed was greater, his fury sharper. The air itself seemed to burn as the claws tore through it. The man ducked low, the tips of the claws grazing his arm, leaving a shallow cut. The girl gasped, her chain rattling as she pulled against it. Blood. For the first time, blood dripped from the human. The crowd roared, some cheering, some jeering. their voices feeding the champion's fury. "Bleed!" they shouted. "Bleed! Human!" But the man did not falter. He looked at the blood on his arm, then raised his eyes to the beast again. His face did not change. No fear, no weakness, only focus. He moved forward instead of back, stepping into the storm of claws. The crowd gasped as his fist struck again, this time against the beast's chest. Another crack, another dent in the armor-like skin. The beast stumbled backward, coughing, his rage mixing with pain. The auctioneer's grin faltered. His staff trembled in his grip. "No," he whispered, too low for the crowd to hear. The girl's breath caught. She saw it now, the rhythm, the pattern. The human was not only fighting, he was studying, learning, reading every motion of the beast. Each dodge, each strike, each step was part of a larger plan. The champion, enraged and humiliated, let out a final roar. He raised both arms high, claws glowing with energy, and brought them down with the force of a hammer meant to split mountains. The human stepped in close, too close for the claws to reach, and struck with all his weight behind a single punch, aimed at the beast's throat. The sound was deafening. The champion fell to his knees, choking, his massive frame shaking, his claws scraping weakly against the floor. The crowd erupted, not in laughter, but in disbelief. The girl's heart leapt into her throat. Her eyes widened as tears stung them, not of fear but of something she had not felt in so long. Hope. The man stepped back, his chest rising and falling, his eyes locked on the fallen beast. He did not raise his arms in victory. He did not shout. He simply stood calm and silent, as if this was not triumph but duty. The auctioneer screamed in rage, slamming his staff so hard the floor cracked beneath it. "Impossible! This cannot be! He cheats! He lies!" His voice broke as fear laced through it. The crowd murmured, their voices shaken. Some shouted for another test. Some demanded the human be killed at once. But others stared in silence, their eyes fixed on the man who stood tall while their champion knelt broken. The girl lifted her head higher, her voice trembling as she whispered words only she could hear. "He's not just saving me. He's showing them what humans are." The champion tried to rise again, his breath rattling, his claws shaking. But the human moved forward one final time. With a single strike to the beast's chest, he sent him crashing to the floor, unmoving. The hall went silent, completely silent. The girl's chains felt lighter now, though they were still tight around her wrists. She stared at the man with wide eyes. He had done what no one thought possible. He had taken their laughter, their cruelty, their belief in human weakness, and shattered it in front of them all. The man turned then, his eyes sweeping across the hall. He did not smile, he did not gloat. His voice was calm, steady, and sharp as a blade. "Do you see now?" he asked the crowd. "Do you understand what you mocked, what you chained, what you sold?" No one answered. No one dared. The girl's heart burned. She felt it deep inside her chest. The truth of his words, the truth of his presence. This was not just about her. This was about all of humanity. The auctioneer's grip on his staff weakened. His red eyes darted from the fallen champion to the silent crowd, then back to the human. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. And in Yaderdub, that silence, one truth became clear: the game had changed. The auction hall was frozen. The champion, once the pride of the alien markets, lay broken on the floor, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. His claws twitched weakly, his horns cracked from the force of the final blow. The silence that followed was heavy, thick, as if the entire galaxy held its breath. The human stood above him, calm and still, not triumphant but unshaken, his fists lowered, his breathing steady, his eyes burning with cold fire. He did not raise his voice, he did not boast, he simply stood there, an unbroken figure in the middle of the storm. The girl stared, her chest heaving, her wrists bleeding, where the chains had cut into her skin. For so long she had felt like prey, like a shadow in the galaxy's cruel game. But now, before her eyes, one man had flipped the board. He had shattered the lie the aliens had always told. that humans were weak. The crowd did not laugh anymore. Their glowing eyes shifted uneasily. Claws gripped railings tight. Some hissed, some muttered, others looked away entirely. They had come to mock, to humiliate, to cheer for human suffering. Now, they witnessed the opposite. Finally, the auctioneer broke the silence. His voice cracked as he tried to steady it. "Do not be fooled, he is only one man. One man does not speak for a dying race." He gripped his staff tighter, his red eyes flicking nervously from the broken champion to the human who stood tall. The man turned his gaze toward him. Just a look. Nothing more. But the auctioneer flinched as if struck. The girl's lips parted in a whisper only she could hear. "He doesn't need to shout. He is enough." The auctioneer tried again, louder, desperate. "What is this? A trick? A desperate act of survival? Humans cannot fight the galaxy. You are nothing." The man finally spoke. His voice was calm, steady, sharp as steel. "Nothing. Your champion lies at my feet. Your lies lie broken with him. You called us weak. But you forgot what we are." He paused, his eyes sweeping the crowd. No one moved. No one dared to speak. The girl leaned forward, her heart pounding. She could feel it. Those words were not just for them. They were for every human who had ever been mocked, enslaved, or silenced. The man's voice rose, not in rage, but in clarity. "We are human. We bleed. We suffer. We fall. But we rise again. Every time. Stronger. Smarter. Harder to kill. You may have numbers. You may have power. But you will never understand our will." The hall was deathly still. The words sank deep into every alien heart, planting seeds of doubt, of fear. The girl felt fire in her chest. She repeated the words silently. "We are human." The chains on her wrists felt weaker now, no longer symbols of shame but reminders of what must be broken. The auctioneer trembled. His grip on the staff slipped slightly as his voice shook. "You think your little speech frightens us? You think your kind will rise? You are scattered. You are broken." The man stepped closer, his boots echoing against the cracked floor. He pointed toward the girl, still bound in chains. "You mock her. You mock all of us. But today you will learn. Today you will see." The crowd shifted nervously. Some aliens muttered about leaving, others stared with growing unease. The power of the auctioneer's stage, the cruelty of the champion, the weight of their laughter, all of it had been broken by one man's defiance. The champion groaned weakly, trying to rise again. But the human didn't even strike. He simply placed his boot against the beast's chest and pushed him back to the ground with ease. The crowd gasped. That one gesture spoke louder than any blow. The girl's eyes filled with tears, not from sorrow, but from something she had not felt since her capture. Pride in her people, pride in what it meant to be human. The man raised his voice once more, his words carrying like thunder. "You will remember this day. You will remember the moment you laughed at humanity, and the moment your laughter died. You will remember that humans are not slaves. We are not prey. We are the storm you never saw coming." The auctioneer stumbled back, his staff clattering slightly against the floor. Fear now clouded his red eyes. The authority he held minutes ago was gone. The crowd, once his, no longer listened to him. Their eyes were on the human. The girl's chains rattled as she whispered, almost praying. "Yes, let them see." The silence stretched longer, heavier. Then slowly some aliens in the crowd lowered their eyes. Not in submission, but in acknowledgement. They had mocked, they had laughed, they had believed in human weakness. But now, standing in front of them, was living proof that humanity was something far greater. The human turned, his gaze finally meeting the girl's. For a brief moment, the noise of the hall faded away. She saw him, not just as a stranger, not just as a savior, but as a symbol. A reminder that humans were never truly alone, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Her chest shook as she breathed the words softly. You've already changed everything. And she was right. From this moment on, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The auction hall was no longer a place of laughter. It was a place of silence, of fear, of something new pressing against every wall like an unseen weight. The broken champion lay on the floor, groaning weakly, his breath ragged. The auctioneer's staff shook in his trembling hand, his red eyes darting between the human and the restless crowd. The man stood tall, calm, his presence burning brighter than the lights above. He had spoken, he had fought, and now he simply existed, like a storm before thunder. And somehow that silence was louder than any roar. The girl, still bound by chains, felt her heart pounding as if it might break through her chest. She had been dragged into this hall as a prize, mocked as worthless, treated as nothing. Yet now she was more than a prisoner. She was a witness to history. A witness to the moment the galaxy first tasted the truth of humanity. The auctioneer tried once more to seize control, his voice cracking but desperate. This means nothing. One fight does not change the galaxy. One human does not speak for all. You are still weak. You are still... His words stopped when the man stepped forward slowly, his boots echoing against the broken floor. He said nothing. He didn't have to. The auctioneer stumbled back, his staff clattering as fear stripped away his authority. The man's eyes swept across the crowd, unblinking, unafraid. You mocked her, he said at last, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the silence. You mocked all of us. But today you learn what it means to laugh at humanity. The words spread like fire. The crowd flinched, claws tightening on rails, voices caught in throats. No one dared mock now. They knew deep down that what they had seen could not be erased. The girl's chains rattled as she leaned forward, whispering, though the sound was swallowed by the silence. Break them, please. As if he heard her, the man turned. His hand reached out, gripping the iron chain that bound her. With one sharp pull, the metal snapped like brittle glass. The crowd gasped as the pieces fell to the ground. The girl lifted her wrist slowly, staring at the broken cuffs. She was free. Free. Because of him. Free. Because one human had chosen to defy the galaxy. Her eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of something stronger. Something fierce. Pride. The man spoke again, his voice steady, his gaze never wavering. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. Remember this day. Remember who stood here. Remember who defied you. The aliens shifted nervously. Some hissed in denial, others whispered in fear. But many stayed silent, their eyes locked on him, knowing deep inside that what they had seen could never be forgotten. The auctioneer tried to shout again, but the strength in his voice was gone. Kill him! Stop him! He cried. But no one moved. None dared step forward. Even the guards at the edges of the hall hesitated, their claws trembling on their weapons. They had seen the champion fall. They had seen the storm in human form. None wanted to face it. The man looked once more at the girl, and for a brief moment his stern face softened. You are free, he said quietly. She nodded, tears running down her face, but her eyes burned with the same fire she saw in him. For the first time since her capture, she felt alive. The man turned back to the hall, his voice rising one last time. Today you mocked one human. Tomorrow the galaxy will face all of us. And when it does, you will remember the mistake you made here. The silence was unbearable, no laughter, no jeers. Only the sound of their fear filling the air. The girl stood beside him now, her chains gone, her head held high. She was no longer prey, no longer an object. She was human, and so was he. Together they stood, side by side, against the weight of a galaxy that had thought them broken. The auctioneer collapsed to his knees, his staff clattering against the floor. His red eyes no longer glowed with power, only with dread. He had witnessed the impossible, and he knew, every alien in that hall would carry this story back to their worlds. The crowd began to murmur again, but it was different now. No more laughter, no more mockery. Only whispers. Whispers of fear. Whispers of respect. Whispers of a race they had underestimated. The girl looked at the broken chains at her feet, then at the man beside her. Her voice trembled, but her words were strong. "You've already changed everything." The man nodded once, his eyes still cold, his voice final. "No, we have." And with that, they walked from the stage, through the stunned silence of the hall, leaving behind broken chains, a fallen champion, and a truth that would ripple through the galaxy forever. The day the aliens mocked humanity was the day they began to fear it, and the galaxy would never laugh again.